Now you guys understand clay barring, you know, cleaning alone does not take off all the contaminants, snow foam, shampoo. You put your hand across the surface and it'll be pretty clean, pretty smooth, but there will be contaminants that you will feel on the surface. It will just feel like 1500, 1800 grit sandpaper, around about that. Not quite smooth, just some undulations, and that is basically embedded stuff like that. Could be tar, tree sap, there could be all sorts of stuff that is still embedded in the paintwork, and a clay bar is supposed to get rid of that. And I've got some here, and all I'm going to use as lubricant is water. So it turns out the car has given me some natural lubricant, which I'll just show you here. All this, yep. So it's been raining overnight, and yep, that's the result. So we're going to use the rain to actually our advantage. The car is very clean, apart from the micro blistering, of which we have to be careful of. Turns out the micro blistering, it's just micro blistering, but it's not actually blistering. It's just sort of bubbles. They haven't actually exploded, which they usually do. They seem to be holding together quite well. Now, that's quite interesting in itself. But there was no way of knowing that what was under that paintwork. It was like a sheet of sandpaper, 100 grit sandpaper, that bonnet, when I bought the car. It was awful. You saw the way it was. So who was I to know? Lurking underneath that was micro blisters. No, I don't think my car cover's done that. It couldn't have been. It hasn't been on the car long enough to have that sort of damage. In any case, the roof, the boot, and maybe the wings, where the cover is in contact a lot of the time, that would cause damage to those areas, and there's nothing like that on there. So clearly that's not the problem. Right, I'm just going to give you a little quick demonstration on a panel, and we'll go from there. Right, first thing to do is just wet the lubricant, and then we wet the panel that we are going to spray. So I'll just go over here. Then I'll just put some fresh water down and literally go through the motions. It doesn't really matter, but can you hear that? I was picking up some grit then straight away. Just go all over the car. In fact, this rain is making it easy. Yes, rainwater is dirty. The point is, it's a natural lubricant of which you can use to make sure that this is clean. Can my camera pick that up? It's not that dirty. Not at the moment. But when you start doing the lower bits, you might need a bit more lubricant on here. There is some dirt picking up on there, so we're getting there, and I think that surface is actually pretty smooth. It has. I have taken quite a lot of the contaminants off. It just goes to show how good the actual snow foam is. I really do apologise for the fact my camera does not want to focus today. Thank you. Now I'm going to go over the whole car doing that. It won't take. Clay barring does not take that long. It's quicker than polishing. And you just do it panel by panel. The worst bit will be the bumpers, but the truth is, this is absolutely nothing. I'll cut back to you when I've done a few panels and we can see the difference in this clay bar. Okay, now I have done the entire back end of the car, the roof. I have done the front of the car as well. I mean, this is... You kind of like, you're getting the micro blistering like this, which is obviously going to cause a noise, but look at the state of that. Now I reckon most of that, and I'm not being funny, front bumper was the worst bit of this car. I've got to go over it again because it's still not right. I've got to do the driver's door, and this is actually shown to be quite a bad one. I don't know why. And the passenger door, but apart from that, the rest of the car is done. The back bumper was a pleasure to do. You really do feel it when you start doing this, but you can actually really sense where the particles are, and then suddenly it goes smooth, and that's when you know you've taken it off. Look at that. Now you see, this is where you don't use that now. That is now scrap. Do not apply that to the bodywork. Goodness me, what is in that? But I'll just get another piece. But it's actually coming up really, really nicely. In fact, for some reason, there appears to be a slight colour difference, and I'm not quite sure why. This car lurks some differences. That is only a minor difference. I suspect that is because, it's probably because I've actually gone over this panel, but there might be a slight difference. I suspect that the reason this car is a Cat C is because that bumper has been replaced, and I think it's had its bonnet replaced, which is why it's in such bad condition. It may have been stored outside. I think this wing has been changed. I think we've had numerous things changed up front. I've got this big suspicion. But it would have happened before 2016 because Cat C's stopped around that time. They're not known as Cat C's no more for some reason. I can't remember what they're called now. Can you see all of this? Now some of these are chips. Some of these are certainly not. And we'll find out which ones are chips and which ones are not. The clay bar does not forgive. There we go. Some of it has already come off. Right, I can't. I'm going to have to replace this now. Goodness me, going through them like a ton. But you can see it's just wiping off. Some of them are just wiping off. I mean, there's some paint issues going on here. I saw that earlier. But yeah, dirty, nasty. That is precisely what you want to see. You are agitating and getting rid of all the embedded stuff. And don't forget to do the inside of the doors, because you've got the inside of the sill, and then you've got all this. I mean, honestly, the amount of stuff I'm getting off this, I can actually hear it. It's just nasty. And I've cleaned all this area out, but we want to make sure that it's all gone so that contaminants can't stick. That's the point in this exercise. We're making the paint so slippery smooth that one, when we polish it, that we're not actually polishing dirt into the paintwork and making swirl marks. That's how swirl marks come out, by the way, if you're polishing a car that hasn't been clay barred and it's not clean on the surface. And secondly, we're making it so slippery that dirt cannot embed in the paintwork. Because if you think about it, dirty paintwork, like the paint on this car when I bought it, it's all like ridges. And when dirt lands and sort of, you know, pollution and all what lands on your car, it will just sit there in a little ridge and it will just build up. And that's how it happens. And then when you make it slippery like this, it makes it almost impossible for dirt to embed properly. It takes 15 to 20 years for that sort of thing to happen, and this car has certainly not had this sort of level since it left the factory. But yeah, it's still I mean, I'm using an old clay bar on the inside. I shouldn't really be, but just squeeze it into a new position and keep on doing it, and I'll do that as well. Just while I'm sorting all this out, just here. MBB. So I have confirmed it is the correct shade of paint. Oh, for goodness sake, I've done it again. I think this is overdue, to be honest. Ugh. Just keep on. And all this here, I mean, this? It's getting rather dirty down here. You can see the actual dirt. It's actually coming off really nicely. Up here where the doors usually stick, it's another area. I mean, I will put some silicone on the door seals, but it's looking so much nicer. Classic example, all of this. See how much I can reduce it by. Now I know that some of this is just embedded, and some of this will need a good polish, but that's the idea. We get the contaminants out of it and the polish will take care of the rest. More water. That's done a good job. Let's see the paint actually. Just worn away, it's just a little bit. That's a huge amount better than what it was before. Just, that's all gone. Just leaving that, and that can be polished. That's the idea of a clay bar in one sum. I mean, that wouldn't, you never get that out with a shampoo. It's too embedded. Even the clay bar was struggling. So we are done. As far as I'm concerned, I may go over again, but this car will be ready for polishing. But obviously before polishing it will need to be dried, washed, just to make sure no contaminants are gone. I'm so pleased with the way it's come up. I mean, the dirt has preserved it so well in every area, not just underneath. I mean, literally we've got 2 dings on this car, actually 3. One down there and one exactly on the driver's door, and 1 ding somewhere on the bonnet. I can't, there we go. There's one. Can the camera pick that up? There's one here, and that's it. Something has gone that way in the engine bay to do that. That's weird. There you go, you can pick it up on camera now. And as usual, you want to go inside the boot. Now the trouble is, on a 45, just like under the bonnet where they didn't lacquer it, they didn't lacquer this bit either. This is being lacquered because this is fine, but this is unlacquered. All this up here, all this channel, and I've just gone over as best as I can. There's still some algae in the middle where I can't quite get to it, but I'll just go over with the clay bar on this section, the sections that I can actually get access to. But the trouble is, it's never going to look brilliant, but I'll just make it look as good as I can. And to be fair, standing back, it looks nice and clean. And plus point, no boot leaks. I've checked, there is no boot leaks on what I've previously done on the vent and the filler flap, which is good. There is, however, a small leak, and it's still coming from here, so I'm going to have to redo that. There's a tiny amount of water getting in this way. In fact, I'll show you. There you go, you can see just a tiny bit here. Now it's basically it's coming down from this section up here, where that vent is. It's not the windscreen, I can assure you, but just a little bit. But we'll sort that, we'll sort that. Right, I'm going to leave this there. I mean, I'm just going to leave you with that versus that. The bodywork is now as smooth as a wristband, all the orifices. I've even done the areas where you can't see, like under the bumper, because the bumper goes under quite a bit, and so do the sill covers. Even though they've been previously cleaned, I actually managed to get more off them than I actually thought. I mean, this is just so nice. There's still a few areas that I'm a bit but the truth is I've actually agitated it, and probably now there's a load of remnants of dirt that have been dislodged, and now I've got to wash it off again. I've got to do another wash, then a dry, then a polish. But this car, with his freckly bonnet, he's looking absolutely fantastic. I mean, we've done inside the doors here. I mean, the finished result is just superb. That's exactly what you want. All the way around the door seams. There's only one thing, the door seal, this door seal on that side is split just about here, so I'm going to need a new passenger seal. That isn't what is causing my leak. It is definitely that guttering up there again, but it's tiny, and you know, it's not uncontrollable, which is great, because the other areas of the car, it was absolutely seeping in. I think I mentioned in the previous video that whoever the mechanics were, they basically drilled a hole just underneath the spare wheel. I don't know if I can actually show you this on the other side. There might be a couple of holes under that. There you go, those two. See those two? Yeah, they've drilled 2 drain holes to get the water out instead of actually dealing with the problem, because that would be too expensive for the customers, so we've got to do it the cheap way. I get that, it's just, ugh. This carpet is going to need a clean. I mean, that there as well, you can see that visibly. This is all going to come out again, because I haven't cleaned this carpet at all really, apart from a light scrub. I have got a spot cleaner coming. A Vax spot wash cleaner. It's like the Bissell ones. They're fantastic things. I mean, elbow grease gets you so far, but these machines, I want to try one. I've always wanted one, and it's an excuse to get one. Arguably, I should have done it when I had the carpets out, so I could do the carpets, but I did it equally as good by hand. This has come up really nicely as well. Unfortunately, it's a Rover 45 thing, and I've exposed this a little bit. The seams tend to go, and water gets in, and actually I've seen Rover 25s where they actually rot along their hinges. I mean, I've put some zinc primer down, but as you can see, there's still evidence of it there. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that really closely, because that is a major job. The good thing is I've not spotted any rust on the other side and no leaking, so clearly there is absolutely no leaking along them seams at the moment, but I will have to look at that. I'll have to do some silicone, just as I did with the Focus at the top, just a bit of silicone. So if I put some sort of here along this ridge and along here very carefully, but we'll consider that soon. But this guttering's got to come off, so I can have a look at that again. But epic. The next video I'm going to do, what I want to do is, there was a lot of contaminants on these rear lights. So what I'm going to do, and I know this is, some people think this is unnecessary, I'm actually going to wet sand these. I'm going to do 1500, 2000 grit wet sand on these. Then we're going to go in the engine bay, cover the engine bay with the engine with cloth, because it's going to get wet. We're going to wet sand the inside of that bonnet, okay, because it's terrible to clean. And I think the best way of doing it is 1500 grit, 2000 grit sandpaper to get the worst contaminants off, so at least it looks a little bit better. Anyway, take care guys, see you very soon.